After 7 years of marriage, I found myself abducted alongside his first love. The captors demanded that Alex make a choice between us. Without a second thought, he opted for his initial sweetheart. They shoved me off the cliff, and I disintegrated into pieces. When I regained consciousness, it was back to our wedding day. I ripped off my veil and stomped on it fiercely with my high heels. Alex tried to hold me back. "Sophia, what are you doing?" I reached out and slapped him hard. "Dummy, can't you see? I'm clearly losing it." "Miss Sophia, are you ready to marry Mr. Alex as his wife?" I stared blankly at everything around me, struggling to believe that I had truly been reborn. Seeing that I was silent, the master of ceremonies repeated his question. Noticing this, Alex pinched my wrist. "Sophia, don't you want to marry me?" He deliberately used a lighthearted tone to ease the earlier tension. The guests joined in, chuckling a couple of times. I slowly shifted my gaze from the distance to Alex's face. The confusion faded, and a surge of hatred took over. In the next instant, I tore off the veil, tossed it to the ground, and stomped on it twice in a fit of rage. Suddenly, the grand venue fell completely silent. Alex was the first to react and tried to stop me. I could clearly see a flicker of disgust in his eyes. "Sophia, what are you doing?" I reached out and slapped him hard once more. "Dummy, can't you see? I'm obviously going crazy." Alex and I were childhood sweethearts. Since we were kids, Alex had always been the standout among his peers. He was handsome, excelled in his studies, and was the favorite of teachers and parents. As for me, I had always admired him from afar. Aware of the gap between us, I only dared to secretly admire him in my heart. Later, to be with Natalie, Alex intentionally skipped the last two major math questions. I happened to perform exceptionally well, and, through a strange twist of fate, ended up attending the same university as them. The two of them walked hand in hand across the campus. The combination of a handsome guy and a beautiful girl always made for a stunning sight on campus. Unfortunately, good times didn't last long. On the eve of graduation, Natalie got an opportunity to study abroad and immediately dumped Alex. On that rainy day, Alex waited for 2 hours outside Natalie's dormitory. He was drenched, but still couldn't convince Natalie to change her mind. At that time, I rented an apartment nearby for my internship. Out of kindness, I took in Alex, who had nowhere to go. At night, I was tossing and turning in bed when I suddenly smelled a strong scent of alcohol. Alex had climbed onto my bed, covered my mouth, and in the moonlight, his dark eyes looked unusually deep. Without giving me a chance to respond, he kissed me forcefully. The first night I had prayed and fantasized about countless times was filled with pain and humiliation. Later, despite Alex's persistent apologies and pursuits, I softened my heart, forgave him, and we got back together. After graduation, Alex decided to start his own business. I stood by him through the tough years and finally waited until his career took off. However, it wasn't long before Natalie returned. That day, Alex answered Natalie's call in front of me. "Alex, I'm back. Let's get back together." With just that casual sentence, our 7-year relationship fell apart. After hanging up the phone, Alex asked for a divorce. Just a moment ago, we were excitedly discussing plans for our child's birth. But what about the child? I stared blankly at him, tears streaming down my face. "Get rid of it. I want to be with Natalie without distractions and don't want to leave a burden." We had been trying to conceive for 3 years, but after Natalie's return, it felt like a burden. I always opposed the divorce. There was no other reason. If I couldn't have a good life, I didn't want these two jerks to have one either. But I never expected to be kidnapped alongside Natalie. On the edge of the cliff, the cold wind was biting. The kidnappers demanded that Alex choose only one between me and Natalie. I was prepared for Alex to choose Natalie, but I didn't expect him to hesitate for even a second. Before I could utter that sentence, I was forcefully pushed by the kidnappers. My body plunged into the cold wind. Even now, recalling the heart-wrenching pain before I died makes me tremble all over. The last thing I wanted to say to Alex before I died was, "Honey, our child is still alive." Of course, the wedding hadn't taken place. Fortunately, Alex and I held the wedding first and then got the marriage certificate. There was still time for everything. When my father berated me in front of all the relatives, calling me a disgrace and saying I had brought shame to the family, my mother took my arm and quietly asked if Alex had done something to apologize. I didn't know how to tell her, I just said, I just suddenly realized that he's not a good person. My mother was silent for a while and then nodded. I'll support whatever decision you make. Don't worry. I'll handle your father. After a pause, she added, actually, when you two first got together, I had advised you. Although he seemed gentle and considerate to you on the surface, I could tell that he didn't love you that much. Not only my mother, but many friends in my previous life had kindly reminded me. But at that time, I was so infatuated with Alex that I couldn't listen to any of it. Ending up in such a situation was really my own doing. However, in this life, I will definitely not repeat the same mistakes. A few days later, when Alex calmed down, he came to make peace with me. At that time, I was sitting in front of the drawing board preparing my works. In my previous life, at this moment, Alex and I had already embarked on our honeymoon trip. Immersed in the joy of the new marriage, I had long forgotten about the fact that the master painter Felix was recruiting closed-door disciples. This opportunity finally fell into Natalie's hands. Natalie returned to China halfway through and stayed under Felix's guidance for 3 months. With the guidance of an expert, Natalie's career soared. As for me, I gave up my dream for Alex, stayed at home cooking for him, and hardly picked up the paintbrush again. This time, I won't let this rare opportunity slip away again. Sophia, I want to know why you ruined our wedding. I was focused on drawing and responded without looking up. Nothing, I just don't like you. Stop messing around. Alex forced himself to suppress his anger and said, do you know how much effort our parents put into preparing for this wedding? You're so thoughtless. Yes, I'm thoughtless. I put down my paintbrush and looked at him. So, you'd better go find someone who is more sensible. Alex was stunned. What do you mean? Let's break up. Alex's expression darkened completely. What's the reason? I've already said it. I shrugged. I don't like you. Alex's chest heaved rapidly, but since we were at my home, he couldn't say anything too excessive. Sophia, although I don't know why you've become like this, if this is the only reason, I don't agree. He had to agree whether he liked it or not. In the following period, no matter what Alex said or did, my determination to break up remained extremely firm. During the preliminary selection, I met Natalie. She was still as beautiful as ever and stood out in the crowd. Natalie just gave me a cold glance and then turned her eyes elsewhere. After it ended, I had just walked out of the elevator when I was stopped by a sweet voice. Natalie walked towards me gracefully. She stood in front of me, looked me up and down, and showed a contemptuous smile. I've long heard that Alex found a substitute in China. I didn't expect it was you. He's really desperate. He'll take anything. Natalie had always been hostile towards me. It wasn't only because of Alex, but also because in the whole academy, I was her strongest competitor. Later, after I married Alex, I gradually neglected my painting skills. The next time I saw Natalie was on TV. By then, she had already become a rising star in the art world, holding dozens of exhibitions at home and abroad and winning numerous awards. When a reporter asked her who she wanted to thank the most for her achievements, Natalie smiled charmingly at the camera. The person I want to thank the most is my former competitor. It was she who made me realize how stupid it is for a woman to give up her beloved career for marriage. Later, netizens, following Natalie's previous social media posts, speculated that I was that so-called stupid woman. I was unjustly subjected to cyberbullying and was depressed for a long time. Facing Natalie's sarcasm, I didn't show any trace of anger. I don't dare to be a substitute. At most, I'm just a trash collector. But now, I don't want that trash anymore. If you like it, you can take it back. As soon as I finished speaking, I looked up and saw Alex. He was holding a bouquet of bright roses in his hand, but his expression was very ugly. Obviously, he had just heard our conversation. There was an exquisite greeting card inserted in the flowers, and the word Natalie on it was unusually clear. In my previous life, let alone flowers, Alex had never bought me any gifts. He said that he had always hated those worldly things. However, on the day Natalie returned to China, he booked an upscale restaurant and bought all the roses in the city for decoration, just to make her smile. Only then did I understand that there's no such thing as not understanding romance in this world. It's just a matter of whether the other person cares about you or not. Alex tried to cover up and took away that greeting card, grabbed my hand, and said softly, "Sophia, it's not what you think." I waved my hand. No need to explain, really. We've already broken up. It doesn't matter who you send flowers to or who you're with. After a pause, I looked at them and smiled. Compared to me, you two are actually a better match. I wish you two will be together forever and don't break up to harm others anymore. After saying that, regardless of Alex and Natalie's livid faces, I left without looking back. Both Natalie and I successfully entered the finals. Those who made it to the finals must have considerable skills. To win this battle, I devoted all my time and energy to the works for the finals. However, my creation seemed to have hit a bottleneck. Many inspirations that came to me suddenly were rejected by me one by one. I locked myself in the room and hardly ate or drank. Before long, I fainted due to low blood sugar. Alex came to see me. I lifted my eyelids and glanced at him. Get out. Alex put down the things in his hand and sighed. You're really silly. There will be plenty of opportunities. Why do you have to work so hard? I turned my body towards the wall, not wanting to pay attention to him. Alex was silent for a long time and then slowly said, Sophia, actually, I came here today because there's something I want to ask you. Natalie has been preparing for many years to become Felix's disciple and even flew back from abroad, especially for this. If she doesn't succeed, she will be very sad. So, I was thinking, could you give this opportunity to her? Suddenly, a fire flared up in my heart. Perhaps because I was in a bad state, I couldn't control my emotions. I sat up with a bang and stared fixedly at the man in front of me. I've also been preparing for many years. I pointed at the band-aid on my forehead left from fainting. I've paid no less than Natalie for this opportunity. Alex, why should you ask me to give up? What right do you have to ask me to give up? Alex frowned. Sophia, with your talent, even if you don't succeed this time, there will still be many opportunities in the future. Natalie is alone abroad, unfamiliar with the place, and has no connections or resources. If she loses this opportunity, it will be very difficult for her career to develop further, even for my sake. I hope. Before he could finish speaking, I interrupted him. For your sake, who do you think you are? A hint of impatience flashed in Alex's eyes. Sophia, don't always speak so harshly. At that moment, a round object suddenly flew from behind and hit him right on the head. My mother had come back without my knowledge. She was standing at the door with shopping bags at her feet. She pointed at Alex, trembling with anger. Originally, when Sophia called off the wedding halfway through, I still felt a bit guilty towards you. Now it seems that Sophia's decision was right. You clearly know how hard Sophia has worked for this opportunity, yet you still ask her to give it up to others. What on earth are you up to? You're being too harsh with your words. After all, Alex is our prospective son-in-law. My father came forward and wanted to say a few words to Alex. As a result, my mother drove him out as well. She sat in front of the bed and held my hand. Girl, be bold and do whatever you want. Mom will always have your back. But there's one thing. Your body is your capital. No matter what difficulties you encounter, don't abuse your body. Do you hear me? I hugged my mother tightly and nodded with a choked voice. In my previous life, because my mother had always been rather cold towards Alex, I thought she was prejudiced against him and gradually became a bit estranged from her. In this life, I finally understood that perhaps love can change over time. Only a mother will support me unconditionally, no matter when or where. Suddenly, I figured out what I was going to paint. On the day of the finals, there were 3 people standing in front of Felix. Besides Natalie and me, there was also a good-looking young man. Felix would select the final winner on the spot based on the submitted works. Victory or defeat could be decided in an instant. Looking at this old man with gray hair and a serious expression in front of me, my palms were sweating nervously. Unlike Natalie and me, the young man looked very relaxed. He even took out his mobile or cell phone from time to check the time during the process. He seemed rather impatient. Generally, people without enough confidence wouldn't dare to do this. I originally thought he was also a formidable rival. However, when Felix picked up the man's painting, he sighed 3 times in a row. The next second, he suddenly grabbed an object and threw it at the man. You're hopeless! Felix was so angry that he stamped his feet and pounded his chest, while the man just put his hands in his pockets and chewed gum indifferently. I've already said that I didn't want to participate. You forced me to come. Get out. Get out. The old man threw another object, and the man jumped aside to avoid it. Then he said with a playful smile, I'm sorry, Grandpa. I'll definitely paint well next time. Please forgive me this time. It suddenly dawned on me that this was their relationship. No wonder he was so fearless. The man came to my side at some point and gently poked my arm with his finger. Senior, come on. Senior? Do I know him? I was just about to ask for details when Felix picked up Natalie's painting and said, Good, 3 times in a row. Natalie glanced at me smugly from the corner of her eye. Seeing Felix's satisfied expression, I also began to feel inexplicably unconfident. Then, Felix picked up my painting. What's this painting about? I took a step forward to explain. A few months ago, an accident happened on the escalator in a shopping mall in the city. At the critical moment, the mother lifted the child up, but she herself was sucked into the escalator. That news touched me a lot at that time, so I painted the scene based on the surveillance video and combined it with my imagination. Felix stroked his beard. There was no expression on his face, but he didn't put down the painting in his hand for a long time. Compared to his reaction just now, Felix looked much calmer. The next second, Felix suddenly announced that I would be his last closed-door disciple. After everyone left, Felix kept me alone. The final expression of the mother in this painting was very vivid. May I ask where your inspiration came from? I lowered my head and smiled. When I was 6 years old, I accidentally fell into the river. My mother couldn't swim, but she jumped in right away. I remember that was the expression on her face at that time. Felix nodded and smiled. Little girl, you have great potential. I've seen so many paintings. Others are showing off their skills, but only you are painting with your heart. After saying goodbye to Felix and walking out the door, a tall figure suddenly blocked my way. It was Felix's grandson. He put his hands in his pockets, looking like a rascal. Senior, I'm hungry. Treat me to a meal. For Felix's sake, for Felix's sake. All the way I kept repeating this sentence in my heart. This Leo not only freeloaded a meal from me, but also insisted that I accompany him shopping because his friend stood him up. My first reaction was to refuse. As a result, the guy gave a sly smile. Senior, I'm the only heir in the Leo family for 9 generations. In the future, since you'll be my grandpa's disciple, we'll meet often. Are you sure you want to offend me? I gritted my teeth and stared at him on the busy street. In the end, I still had to bow to reality. Leo came out of a store at some point and gave me a shiny hairpin. What are you doing? Of course it's for you. I sneered. I don't want this kind of thing that kids wear. Then I saw the price. Damn. I quickly stuffed it back into his hand. It's too expensive. I can't afford it. Leo was amused. Senior, are you playing cards or something? I'm 158 centimeters tall, and Leo is 2 heads taller than me. Standing in front of me, he was like a wall. There was nowhere for me to escape. He easily caught my hand and tried to force the hairpin onto my head. What are you doing? Coming to my senses, Alex was already standing in front of us with an unfathomable expression, and Natalie was also standing beside him. She glanced haughtily between Leo and me and gave a cold laugh. Sophia, I didn't expect that you're quite resourceful. You've even won over Felix's grandson. How could Felix not choose you? I pinched my nose and turned to Leo. Do you smell a strong sour smell? Natalie's face immediately fell. Alex couldn't bear to see Natalie being wronged and reproached me. Sophia, do you have to be so sarcastic when you speak? After a pause, he looked back and forth between Leo and me with a storm gathering in his eyes. What's your relationship with this guy? What's my relationship with him? It's none of your business. I was just about to speak my mind on the street when, the next second, I fell into a warm and solid embrace. Sophia, I'm tired from shopping. Let's go home, okay? This ambiguous tone with a touch of coquetry successfully made Alex's face turn completely gloomy. Sure enough, he stared fixedly at Leo's hand on my waist and sneered. I wondered, why did you suddenly break up with me? Sophia, I didn't expect you to be such a fickle woman. Uncle, in a relationship, the one who isn't loved is the third party. Leo interrupted without showing any weakness. You should really reflect on why you can't hold on to her anymore. Alex's face instantly turned livid. It wasn't only because of Leo's words, but also because of the word uncle, which dealt a heavy blow to Alex's self-esteem. Before Alex could react, I dragged Leo's hand and left. On the way, Leo asked me, Senior, Who was that uncle? My ex-boyfriend. Are you sure? But from the look of him, it seems that he still has feelings for you, senior. And you, in my heart, he's no different from a dead person. I said firmly. That's great. Leo suddenly stopped walking. He turned to me, stretched out his hand, and smiled as brightly as the sun. Senior, may I be lucky enough to be your current boyfriend? In the blink of an eye, I had been under Felix's guidance for nearly 3 months. Under his instruction, my painting skills had improved rapidly. Meanwhile, I also developed a deep affection for this eccentric but kind-hearted old man. One day, the old man secretly brought out a plate of water chestnut cake from the kitchen and was sneaking back to the study like a thief when I caught him halfway. That's it, I won't eat any more today. The old man begged pitifully, but I was firm. No way, this is the third plate today. If you eat more, your stomach will feel uncomfortable. Seeing that he couldn't persuade me, the old man could only give up and put the water chestnut cake back in its place. I made it, but I'm not allowed to eat it. How can that be reasonable? I made it, but I'm not allowed to eat it. How can that be reasonable? I narrowed my eyes and deliberately teased him. All right, then I won't make it any more in the future. Naughty girl, I was just joking. What are you two chatting about? At this time, Leo walked in with an exquisitely packaged bag in his hand. The old man craned his neck to look. Oh, it's cake. Is there any for me? Leo quickly protected it with both hands. There's only this small piece. If you eat it, what will the senior eat? The old man raised his cane. You naughty boy. Why are you always siding with others? Take it easy, old man. It hurts. While the grandfather and grandson were joking around, I smiled and took a bite of the cake. The sweet and sour cream melted in my mouth, and I couldn't help smiling. I never got tired of this cake shop's treats. However, it was so popular that people had to queue for a long time. I was lazy, so I gradually seldom bought cakes from there. After Leo knew about it, he often queued for a long time to buy them back for me. After many failed attempts to refuse, I could only accept it. In the blink of an eye, the old man was nowhere to be seen. Where's your grandpa? Where has he gone in such a short time? Leo curled his lips but didn't say anything. Only then did I realize it belatedly. So, this old man was trying to play matchmaker for us. Somehow my cheeks felt a little hot. It was Leo who broke the awkwardness. I heard that you've been shortlisted for the Golden Color Award. Congratulations. Thank you, senior. Leo put away his usual casualness and said solemnly, after the awards ceremony, can I invite you to have a meal? I have something to tell you. I could more or less guess what Leo wanted to do. After he confessed to me on the street last time and I rejected him, Leo hadn't mentioned it again. I thought he had given up the idea. Unexpectedly, I pursed my lips and was just about to refuse. However, Leo suddenly leaned over and gave me a light kiss on the cheek. If you don't say anything, I'll take it as you've agreed. I'll tell you the name of the restaurant then. You must come. I was stunned on the spot. By the time I came to my senses, Leo had already run away. The warm touch still remained on my cheek. I should have been angry, but somehow my heart suddenly started beating fast. There were rumors spreading internally that, barring any accidents, I would be the final winner of this year's Golden Color Award. However, just 1 week before the award ceremony, the industry suddenly broke the news that there was some shady business in the Golden Color Award, directly accusing Felix, one of the judges, of abusing his power for personal gains. What's more, someone claiming to be an insider revealed that when Felix recruited disciples, I got the opportunity by improper means. And the photo of Leo putting his hand on my waist on the street that day was also posted. At first, there was only one rumor, but in the end, they were all connected. With various marketing accounts forwarding them one after another, the situation started to get out of control. Leo and I tried our best to prevent the old man from surfing the internet to avoid him seeing the news and getting angry and harming his health. But there's no such thing as an airtight wall. The old man still heard about it from his friends. He was so angry that he had a heart attack on the spot. Fortunately, he was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment in time and was out of danger. Outside the operating room, both Leo and I were as pale as a sheet before we could recover from the shock. The reporters somehow got the news and surrounded us with their cameras. I heard that Felix had a heart attack after seeing the news online. As his disciple, how do you feel? I looked straight at him. Then let me ask you, how would you feel if your mother died? The expression of the reporter who asked this question froze on his face. The other reporters, however, refused to give up. Miss Sophia, could you please answer whether Felix's acceptance of you as his disciple has anything to do with Mr. Leo, Felix's grandson? If I say no, will you believe me? The reporter showed a smile that seemed like ridicule. Miss Sophia is really putting us in a difficult position by saying so. As far as I know, after you met Mr. Leo, you immediately broke up with your fiancé, whom you had been in love with for many years. If that's really the case, we have to suspect the authenticity of the rumors. Leo stepped forward and blocked me behind him. He grabbed the work permit in front of the leading reporter and sneered, "Using unconfirmed rumors for an interview? Is this the professionalism of you journalists? Moreover, my grandpa was just pushed into the operating room, and you came right after. Your noses are even sharper than dogs. If my grandpa suffers any more stimulation because of you today, and his condition worsens as a result, each and every one of you will be held accountable." The reporters were startled by Leo's imposing manner. After looking at each other, they could only leave dejectedly. Seeing that I was still standing there in a daze, Leo thought I was scared. He hurriedly helped me sit on the bench and opened a bottle of water for me at the same time. "It's okay, Senior. They've all left." I shook my head. "It wasn't because of them. Then what's the matter?" I looked up at him. "I might know who's behind all this." I ignored Alex's assistant's obstruction and burst into his office directly. I asked straightforwardly, "You were the one who contacted those reporters, right?" "What reporters? What are you talking about?" I sneered. "There's no need for you to deny it. I saw their work permits. Your best friend also works at that TV station. Alex, don't tell me it's all a coincidence." Alex remained silent. Silence was the best answer. Why? I just felt that my throat was terribly dried out. "I'm sorry." Alex lowered his head and quietly uttered these 3 words. I looked at him. "It's for Natalie, right?" Alex's voice became a bit hoarse. "Natalie has been very sad since she missed the last opportunity. Your success will make her feel even more uncomfortable." "Sophia, I admit that I'm sorry about this, but now the public opinion is overwhelming. You should also be clear yourself how much influence there is in your becoming Felix's disciple." Without saying a word, I slapped Alex as hard as I could. His face immediately swelled up. "Alex, you really make me sick." I squeezed out these words through my teeth. I grabbed Alex's tie and pulled it down hard. Alex was forced to look at me at eye level. I stared at him with red eyes. "It doesn't matter if you splash dirty water on me, but if something really happens to my master because of you, Alex, I will make sure you pay a heavy price." Alex looked at me with a confused expression. I just wanted to expand the influence of the situation. "When did I splash dirty water on you?" Walking out of Alex's office, I saw Natalie as soon as I looked up. The moment she saw me, her expression immediately turned gloomy. "Sophia, since we've already broken up, why are you still pestering Alex?" "Don't worry. I'm not interested in your trash." I curled my lips coldly and took a few steps forward to shorten the distance between us. "Don't think I don't know who took the photo of Leo and me secretly and released it." "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Looking at Natalie's guilty yet forcibly calm expression, I chuckled. "If you don't want others to know, don't do it. It's really despicable to use such underhanded tricks when you're not as good as others." Natalie sneered, tossed her hair, and didn't bother to pretend anymore. "Yes, it was me." "So what?" I was about to say more when Natalie interrupted. "I'm just telling everyone the truth." "The truth? How ridiculous." I glanced back out of the corner of my eye and deliberately said, "Natalie, you clearly know that I won fairly and squarely." Natalie snorted disdainfully through her nose. Unfortunately, Alex wasn't there, and netizens weren't there either. "Everyone will only believe what they see. Sophia, if I can't have a good life, you won't either." "A scumbag and a bitch. You two are really a perfect match." I turned around and looked at Alex behind me, smiling. I had noticed that he had chased after us just now. So, just now, I deliberately let him see Natalie's true face. At this time, Alex was looking at Natalie with a complicated expression, His thin lips pursed into a straight line. Finally, without saying a word, he turned around and walked back. Natalie gave me a fierce look and quickly chased after him. During their brief time together before, Alex had only seen a small part of Natalie. As the saying goes, the ones we can't have are always the ones that keep us restless. In Alex's heart, Natalie had always been a perfect goddess, pure and spotless. Now, having seen the imperfect and even ugly side of the goddess, would his feelings for Natalie remain the same as before? I don't know. I only know that I definitely can't be so passive anymore. I have to do something. To clarify things, I sorted out in detail the timeline of when I met Leo, and I also attached the recording of the conversation with Alex in the office that day. Not long after I posted it on Weibo, I got both good news and bad news. The good news was that the rumors about me were clarified. The bad news was that I became famous. The comments section was full of comments trying to play matchmaker for Leo and me. Sister, I feel that Leo really likes you. Why don't you two give it a try? What the heck? While I was still confused, I found that Leo had also posted a Weibo and tagged me at some point. We're not together yet, but I'm working hard on courting her. I hope everyone can give us your blessings. Leo had accumulated a large number of fans earlier because of his identity and handsome appearance. After this Weibo was posted, it caused an even bigger stir. Even his female fans couldn't help shipping us. I slammed my mobile phone onto the table and started beating my chest and stamping my feet. What a sin! Don't. I stood on the awarding platform, holding the heavy trophy in my hand, and excitedly looked around at my relatives and friends in the audience. Suddenly, I saw a familiar figure. It was Alex. He was sitting in a hidden corner, staring straight at me with an unfathomable expression. I chose to ignore him deliberately. Instead, I shifted my gaze to my mother, who was wiping away her tears in the audience, and the old man with a gratified look on his face. Of course, there was also Leo. He was clapping his hands vigorously and cheering loudly for me. In his eyes when he looked at me, there were blessings and also deep affection. At that moment, I suddenly felt that Leo, like my mother and my master, was someone very important to me. Warm memories flashed through my mind like fragments. He would often remind me to have meals on time, send me medicine late at night when I was sick, and constantly encourage and praise me when I doubted myself. Perhaps I didn't even notice that, unconsciously, I had gotten used to his kindness and was used to having a follower around me every day, calling me senior. If I really had no feelings for him at all, I would feel that his kindness to me was a burden. But I didn't have that feeling at all. After the ceremony ended, I received the location of the restaurant sent by Leo. Senior, you must come. The corners of my mouth curled up involuntarily. I stopped the makeup artist who was about to remove my makeup for me. Leave it on. I have a date tonight. After saying goodbye to my master and relatives and friends, I stood by the roadside waiting for a taxi. A dilapidated white van slowly drove towards me through the night. At first, I didn't pay attention until I saw its license plate. Memories of my previous life instantly flooded back. If I remembered correctly, this was the very van that kidnapped me in my previous life. I turned around and ran towards the nearest building. The door of the van opened, and two men got out and walked quickly towards me. The sound of their footsteps was getting closer and closer, and my heart was almost jumping out of my chest. Just then, a staff member walked out of the building. I was just about to shout for help loudly when a man who rushed over from behind covered my mouth. I smelled the choking cigarette smoke on him, exactly the same as in my previous life. Honey, don't be angry anymore. I'm sorry, okay? The man said as he dragged me towards the van. His accomplice also chimed in. I say, sister, just go back with my brother-in-law. What can a couple solve privately? The staff member who had stopped at first, upon hearing that it was a family matter, turned around and walked away. In the end, I was forcibly dragged into the van. When the kidnappers removed the black cloth covering my face again, I saw the familiar bottomless cliff in Natalie's tear-stained face. My heart was instantly filled with despair. Could it be that fate really couldn't be changed? Everything was very similar to how it developed in my previous life. After receiving the kidnapper's call, Alex rushed over as quickly as possible. However, this time, only a small part of his worried eyes were on Natalie, and most of them were fixed on me. You can make whatever demands you want, and I'll meet them all. I just beg you not to hurt either of them. The gangster chuckled. I don't want money. It's just that life is too boring and I want to have some fun. General Manager Alex, I'm curious. One is your first love, and the other is your childhood sweetheart who dumped you. Who on earth will you choose to let live? Alex's expression changed. I want both of them to survive. But in my previous life, he didn't hesitate at all and chose Natalie. Why did he change his choice in this life? The kidnapper sneered. General Manager Alex, I advise you not to test my patience. If you don't make a choice soon, both of these women will die. With that, the kidnapper pretended to push us all down. Natalie let out a shrill scream and shouted with tears streaming down her face. Alex, save me! But I remained silent all along. Alex slowly turned his head to look at Natalie, his voice hoarse. Natalie, I'm sorry. Natalie's eyes widened. Seeming to sense what Alex was about to say, she showed a disbelieving look. I choose her? Alex was pointing in my direction. Release her immediately. However, the kidnapper didn't move for a long time and just stared at Natalie with a strange look. I watched Natalie meet his gaze and then immediately show a guilty expression. Suddenly, a terrifying guess popped into my mind. The next second, a huge force came from behind, and my body couldn't help but lean forward as if I was about to fall to pieces like in my previous life, so I closed my eyes in fear. Fortunately, a hand grabbed me just in time, regardless of the danger. After a dizzying whirl, my body fell into a warm embrace. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Leo's worried face at a glance. Through the gap in his embrace, I saw that the kidnappers had also been subdued by the police one by one. My guess was right. The so-called kidnapping was just a drama directed and acted by Natalie herself. Presumably, it was the same in my previous life. Natalie wanted to be with Alex openly and above board. She had to get rid of me, the obstacle, first. And those so-called kidnappers were desperados hired by Natalie at a high price. Natalie was originally very confident in herself and never expected that Alex's final choice would be me. In the end, Natalie was sentenced to 8 years in prison on suspicion of multiple charges, such as kidnapping and attempted murder. Alex didn't go to visit her even once. Instead, he kept pestering me. Sophia, I admit that after Natalie came back, I still had unrealistic fantasies about her, but that was just the lingering feelings from my youth. Now I've completely seen through my own heart. The person I love the most is actually you. Could you give me another chance? I can make it up to you. I gave a cold smile. Forget it, Alex. You're just unwilling to have your things taken away. If I hadn't broken up with you, and if I had become your wife smoothly, you would have discarded me like old shoes again. Whether it's Natalie or me, in fact, you've never really loved anyone seriously. You've always loved yourself the most. Alex looked pained and kept murmuring while grabbing me. Sophia, believe me, I will really change. As long as you forgive me, I promise that I'll love you well in the future. I pulled out my hand with a faint smile. Sorry, I don't need cheap love. Forgot to tell you that I already have a fiancé, so please don't pester me anymore in the future. Alex stared at me with disbelief in his eyes. After saying that, a Porsche slowly drove over from not far away and stopped in front of me. Leo got out of the car, protected me behind him, and looked at Alex with a cold expression. I know that Sophia was your fiancée before, but she's mine now. If you can't love her well, there will naturally be others to love her. Don't pester her anymore. I'm only saying this for the last time. I got into Leo's car. After the car had driven for a while, I saw from the rearview mirror that Alex was still standing there. Distant memories came flooding back. Suddenly, I remembered that in my previous life, whenever Alex went on a business trip, I would stand at the intersection and stare blankly in the direction he left. In the blink of an eye, I became the one sitting in the car. A ringtone interrupted my random thoughts. The old man's proud voice came from the phone. Naughty girl. How long has it been since you came to see me? If you don't come again, then never come again. Anyway, I don't really want to see you guys either. I smiled. All right, we were already planning to go and see you today. By the way, we've also brought your favorite water chestnut cake. The orange sun slowly set. The whole city was wrapped in a warm atmosphere. When waiting for the red light, Leo gently held my hand out. I turned around and smiled at him.